Imagine that this big circle represents all the grant makers in the entire known universe. Private, public, big, small, single focus, multi-purpose, local, national, global. How large is this circle? Well, would you be surprised to know that there are over 100,000 grant makers in the United States alone? Hello. I'm Maren Bass, and today I'd like to share a few tips that can dramatically up-level your grant-seeking success by packing more power into your funder research. Now, the bad news is that out of all these 100,000 grant makers, 99% or more are not going to be at all interested in seeing a proposal from your organization. Don't take it personally. They simply don't have your money in their pockets waiting for you to claim it. Now, if you immediately think mission match, good for you. As community organizations, we have our mission for creating change in the community, and every grant-making organization has its own philanthropic mission as well, also for creating change in the community. Now, if there's no overlap at all, say ta-ta and move on. Your money is not behind that door. But if you're only looking for funders where there's a 100% match, you're probably missing out on some excellent prospects. In many cases, as long as there's at least one key aspect of your proposal that matches the key aspect of the funder's mission, you'll have a foot in the door, and that's half the battle. Let's look at an example. Say your organization is a 501c3 nonprofit that provides a school-based reading program for teenagers whose families are refugees. Now, you want to expand into a rural community, and you're requesting a van to provide transportation for the kids and for your volunteers, and you'll be sharing that van with a local Lutheran church and a small historical museum. So who are your target zone funders? Well, you'll probably start by identifying the major issue category that your project falls into. Issue categories are those great big huge broad groupings like arts, animal welfare, the environment, health, and so on. For our project, we might reasonably select education. That gives it a very broad scope for our funding research. So far, nothing new, right? Then you would naturally narrow down by focus within the broad issue category. For our project, for instance, within the broad category of education, we can narrow our focus down to what we're going to be addressing in our project, which is reading or literacy. And we use these terms in our funder search. But now let's take this a few steps further, and let's look at 4 more frames that we can use to view our project, each one of which can bring a whole new set of funders into the mix, even funders with no specific interest in education or reading. Let me say that again. With the right research strategy, you can find good prospective funders who have no specific interest in your issue area. Let's see how that works. The first of our 4 frames is the type of service you're providing. This simply means the activities you'll be engaging in: counseling, mentoring, recreation, and so on. Now, in this case, we have 2 activities, don't we? We're doing tutoring, but we're also providing transportation. Now, did you know there are funders who specifically look for opportunities to support tutoring or transportation needs, regardless of the specific issue involved? So instantly, you now have 2 additional groups of funders, those who specifically support tutoring and those who specifically support transportation. The second frame is the geographic aspect. What's the nature of the community you're serving? Is it inner city, urban, rural, remote? So our project is going to serve a rural community. Did you know there are funders who specifically look for opportunities to fund projects in rural locations? Again, regardless of the specific issue involved. Are you getting the picture? The third element to look for in framing your request is the target population. What are the common characteristics, if any, that are shared by all the people who are going to be benefiting from this project? Now, again, in our example, we have 2. We're serving teenagers or youth, and we're also focusing specifically on refugee families. Did you know there are funders who specifically, you can finish that sentence yourself, right? And the 4th and final frame is applicant type. You probably already know that funders usually have preferences or even restrictions on the kind of organizations they'll support. In our example, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, right? So that's what you look for in your funder research. But wait just a minute. Didn't we mention partners? This is one way your partnerships can really pay off big. For every partner you bring into your proposal, you also bring that partner's prospective funders. Now, in our example, your partners include the school that's hosting the program, a church, a Lutheran church no less, and a historical museum. Have you been keeping count? How many pools of qualified prospects have we accumulated so far? Now, we started with the broad category of education. We narrowed our focus down to reading or literacy, and then we've added all those funders serving our geographic area who, whether or not they're specifically interested in education or reading, do have an express interest in making grants for tutoring, transportation, rural communities, teenagers, refugee families, 501c3s, schools, churches, and museums. Wow, that's a target zone list that packs a lot of punch. Now, you want to amp up the power a little more? Go even deeper and dig out those funders who are a direct match on 2 or 3 or even more of the frames you've identified for your project. A grant maker who likes to support projects that serves rural teenagers is a 2-point match. If there's also a preference for projects with a church affiliation, that's a 3-fer, a solid 3-point match. It's not a guaranteed yes, but it's a strong very possibly. And in the universe of grants research, it just doesn't get any better than that. I'm Maren Bass, wishing you happy grant seeking.